I had
Gosh,
one
yeah.
guy. This family was so rude to me. I lost it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
tell me. I have the amazing creator of Bistro Huddy,
Yeah.
Drew Talbert. Hello. Thank you so much for
Hello.
hanging out with me. So the big
Thanks
first
for
question
having me.
is, so your whole thing is like, I'm gonna ask you how Bistro Huddy became a thing.
Okay.
But like for those who don't know, you have built like this whole empire of like little soap opera of a little restaurant and all the
Yeah.
workers within it, and you have the line cooks and you have the staff and you have the
Yeah.
managers, and it's
Yeah.
its own little community.
Yeah.
And it's just you in a bunch of different wigs, and I love that more than
It
anything.
mostly, yeah. My wife Andrea is a co-creator because she writes them with me.
Oh, that's so
She's
cool.
instrumental in every
I love the
possible
tag
way.
team. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a million ways I could talk about how she affects it and helps it.
I
but
feel that so
she's-
hard because so many people don't know how much Avery also helps me with behind the scenes stuff too. So
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
So the big question before I ask how Hoodie Bistro became a thing is, have you actually been a server?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
yeah. If I could pull off that without ever doing it, that would be amazing.
How long have you
know.
been a server?
I was a server for about 22 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I like that you almost spit the water out.
Yeah, that's a long time. Like, well,
Just
I was
like water
expecting like
spray all over my face.
I thought
Like,
my
yeah.
6 years was a long time.
Oh, you're a baby.
I know.
Just a
But
baby.
I started as like a baby host.
6 years is good though.
Yeah, I started as a
As a
baby
host.
host when I was like what, 15, 16, and then
what is a baby host?
like I was in high
They-
school. Like
Okay.
like I was an actual baby.
I didn't know if your restaurant literally had that.
no,
Like,
no.
okay,
no.
we'll start you as a baby host.
And then you graduate to
and then
host.
yeah.
I did graduate to head host.
Oh wow.
And then I graduated to server.
Oh wow.
And then I went somewhere else and did bartending.
And then you got the heck out of there.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, then I started teaching, which was its own mistake.
Oh right, yeah. No, I get comments from teachers that have gone back to bartending or serving because they just can't.
I actually I
for
know
those
someone
reasons.
personally who was a elementary school teacher,
Sure.
and she loved it. But we live in North Carolina. The education system is not good to us, especially in the South.
Yeah.
And she decided to quit teaching and become a bartender
Sure.
because she makes more money,
More money,
bartending,
less stress.
significantly less stress, gets to actually go home and be home and not have to do anything at all. And she loves it. She's like, why would I ever go back? Like,
No, it's
I work
a thing I see
80%
a
less.
lot.
Oh my God, crazy. But sorry,
Yeah.
I ramble. I have ADHD.
Well, podcast is a great thing for you
That's
to do
so
if
true.
you ramble, right? I don't think you have to apologize for rambling on a podcast.
Well, I want to
Like,
hear. I
that's
want to
like-
hear from you. Like,
Oh,
I want to
okay.
know how. I want to know how you came to build
Sure.
this empire of yours.
I keep saying empire. I just love it.
I
It's
used
funny.
to teach social studies, so like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll use
Oh,
those
right.
terms. Yeah,
Right.
it makes sense.
Very grandiose.
Yeah.
It started with COVID, like a lot of creators probably.
Same.
Really? Yeah, it
Yeah.
was one then too. Okay. And so my restaurant I was working at was shut down, and I was teaching improv at the Groundlings, which is it's been around LA since the 70s.
Oh, cool.
And it's a improv and sketch theater and school. It's where Will Ferrell went. It's where Melissa McCarthy. It's where a lot of people, Phil Hartman. Anyway, I went through their program, was performing and teaching improv there.
Right.
So teaching and serving at a restaurant.
Right.
Never seeing my kid. I had one at the time. I
Bless.
have two now, my wife. And COVID shut everything down. And as bad as it was for a lot of us, it turned into a silver lining because I had time to make content. I moved out to LA to be an actor and a writer. Never had the success I wanted. Just a few markers along the way saying keep going kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But this gave me a chance. And improv and sketch, at Groundlings, we put on wigs. We do characters. It's a character-based style of comedy where we teach you how to create characters, play a lot of different characters, voices and affectations and the way you carry
That's
your
so
body
fun.
and the way you think as that character, the point of view. So that's what I was just doing constantly anyway.
Right.
So when COVID shut down, my wife gets on TikTok And I'm kind of skeptical. Then I get on it because I have time. And I'm making little silly stuff like we all are in
Right.
2020. And then I'm like, well, I'll do this restaurant idea that, you know, it was just this one thought. I didn't think much of it. And it blew up. It was a mother there with her child. And she's using the server to help teach her child manners, which happens a lot. So she's like, say thank you. And the kid won't. You know, the kid's just like... And then the server is busy.
Yeah.
So they don't have time for this. But you're now being held hostage. So I'm playing the server, the kid, and the mom. And it blows up. You know, wigs.
Right.
Thing. And it's out of necessity, right? You know, my wife was doing TikToks too, but she was doing her own thing.
Right.
So I would just go in the room and do this. You couldn't get actors together. Matter of fact, my wife and I had tried many times because she's produced stuff. She's an actor too, a writer. So she and I had tried to make things happen. It's so hard to corral a bunch of friends in LA.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're flaky. Sometimes they just book something or they have an audition come up. So your plans fall apart if you can't pay people a lot or at all.
Right.
So we got frustrated with that. So when this started happening, I'm like, wait a minute. I can play all the parts. I don't have to depend on anybody. Every night, the kid goes to bed, and I'd go into the room and make another TikTok and, you know, blah, blah, blah. It kind of went from there. And it was just like little funny ideas at first. And Bistro Huddy grew sort of organically because people would like that character I used. So I'm like, well, let's name her Nicole, and let's name this guy, and like, let's give everybody names and it started developing slowly into more of like a sitcom.
I love
more
it.
than with like storylines and like characters that you can recognize. But it started as just like silly restaurant ideas, jokes and stuff.
And so I know the answer to this, and you're going to roll your eyes at it. But for people who have never worked in a restaurant before, how much would you say that your skits and the storylines exaggerate versus like really reflect what happens in restaurants?
Most of the time, we don't exaggerate
No.
that much. If anything, we hold back.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you've worked in a restaurant, sometimes people in the comments will be like, "Does that really happen?"
Yes.
And then they'll have like 50 servers respond.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And so I'm like, just read your replies, my friend.
Yes, because I used to just make skits about teaching and education, but since like now I kind of do every other. I'll do a teaching and then I'll do a restaurant and then I'll do a teaching and then I'll do like a bartender and then I'll do a teaching and then I'll do like a hotel worker, because I've been trying to encompass like other occupations while still maintaining the educational sphere.
Yeah.
But like I'm so passionate about the ones that I have done before, you know, cheer coaches or serving or hosting or bartending or teaching.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me the number of people who will literally comment like, "Oh, this happened to me last week. This happens to me all the time." And then you still see the people that are like, "This doesn't happen." I'm like, what do you mean?
We were so blown away early on by the messages I'd get on Instagram from people in other countries. I always thought, you know, I only worked here. I worked in Tennessee and California as a server. But I'd get like someone from, "I work at a restaurant in Morocco, dude. It's the same stuff here." Or like, I'm like, whoa.
That's
it was
crazy.
just like, it's like all over the world, customer service is so similar.
Yes.
The other thing I'll say about exaggeration is this is one thing where Andrea really rocks it. I have always, as a child, I was a weird little kid. I loved it. Like if you called me a weirdo when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I'm doing it right.
That's me.
So as an adult, my comedy, I always kind of went for the exaggerated weird idea. And we started doing these restaurant things, and I'd pitch an idea to her about whatever.
Right.
Like, what if there, as a emotional support animal, it was a literal monkey. I have an ape costume. She's like, no. So, not that wouldn't work. I still want to do that one day. But anyway, her thing was ground it, make it real. That's more relatable to people.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay. And so she was so good at helping, like with the tone of it, make it feel less exaggerated and more real, because you don't have to exaggerate this stuff, as you know. Like, you can.
People are jerks.
If anything, TikTok, because of there are rules about you can't show certain things, we tone it down. Think about the stuff that happens behind the restaurant.
Yeah.
Illegal and not that I don't show. I don't show any part of that because I don't want TikTok to take the video down.
Exactly.
So if anything, I tone it way down.
Yeah. Interesting. So like, what is the one story that you've told where like the most people have been like, there's no way that's real, or there's no way that happens?
Oh man, I think it was. It may have been something with. Now this one did not happen to me. Sometimes it's someone will submit a story.
Right. I'm the same. I have like a list of submitted stories right here.
You know, but there was one about. I'm trying to think. There was one where this guy literally weighed his steak to show how it wasn't 14 ounces or whatever, but that's a pre-cooked weight. People don't understand. When you cook it, you lose sometimes 25 to 30% of the weight of the steak. And people do that. People bring in scales and they'll like complain about the weight of the steak. Stuff like that.
They just carry around a scale.
They'll bring it in because they're just like they think last time it didn't seem 12 ounces to me. I'm going to bring in a scale this time, and they'll call the waiter over and be like,
"Explain this."
9 ounces. Your menu says 12, and you have to explain that's a pre-cooked weight. You know, when you cook it, it cooks off percent. You know. It just disappears into the grill. It's crazy.
Like, I always think that because, you know, I was in the service industry for 6 years and I was a teacher for 5. Like, people can't keep surprising me, but they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Or like as a bartender, you know this, like people complain about there's no alcohol in this, right? They'll get a mixed cocktail with tons of mixer and stuff, and they'll say, and you made it, and you know you put it in there. And I did one that blew up early on. It was a big hit because I worked at a restaurant where the bartender taught me this. She was like, here's my little trick. When they complain about that, it's called the straw trick. And you pour just a little bit more in the straw.
Like a drop.
And then you bring it back to them, and the first thing that hits their mouth is the alcohol. And they're like, much better.
I love it. And they drink the whole
So I did a video
normally.
about that. And people were like, what? Is this a thing? And all the bartenders were like,
yeah.
You have to have this to survive. Like,
It's just, it's so crazy to me how, like, people see these stories and they see these skits and they go viral, but, like, people aren't getting the hint of, like, stop acting like this in public.
Right.
Like, you're all acting like this in public.
Right.
Like, someone sent me a story about how, like, they worked at a restaurant and they, you know, their tables were all situated, so they took 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. They're like, I have not peed in 3 hours. I need to go. This is my moment. I'm going to the bathroom. Right. And this is a man, so he's at the urinal.
Yeah, it's quick.
Peeing.
Yeah.
And while he's peeing, someone taps him on the shoulder. Oh. And he looks behind. It's a customer, not even his table, a different customer. And the customer is like, "Hey, I could really use some more napkins. Just whenever you get a second." The guy's like, "My guy, I'm a little busy right now."
Literally.
Well, I can't find my server. And he goes, "Okay, so you followed me into
Let me look. Maybe he's down here."
He literally followed him into the bathroom just to say, "I can't find my server, but I need napkins. So, amazing. Let me know." And he's like, "I'm a little busy. I can't get that for you right this second." So the customer literally rolled his eyes, scoffed, walked out of the bathroom. Yeah. And once the guy, like the server, just did that just happen?
That's wild.
Got himself situated, went back out to go check on his tables. There's waiting for him his manager, who's like, "This customer says that you wouldn't help him."
That's amazing.
He says that you won't provide customer service.
Well, I hope this was easily remedied
by he didn't give any finishing, like, I didn't get anything other than my manager chewed me out for refusing to help this customer. I don't know what happened after. Oh, yeah. I don't know if they ever revisited it, but he just said, my manager chewed me out in front of the customer to appease the customer that I would not.
In front of the, right. Yeah. They do the show.
Yeah, the little show. And then I'm hoping that, like, nothing actually came of it.
I hope they turn the corner. And
or at least, like, apologized.
Just for them.
Sometimes there are some questionable managers out there.
Yeah.
I had one that would, like, go into the drawers and just, like, look through people's phones.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, really questionable people sometimes in the service industry. Yeah. Yeah.
There is. There's a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, when my first restaurant, it's so funny because, like, so I started as I was 16. I was hosting, and every server there was significantly older. Like the median age was maybe 30 to 40, which is fine. But then, like, they literally, anytime this group, like, a new person would come in who was younger, it was almost like outsider.
Yeah.
So, like, when I graduated to server, like, I was definitely, like, the kid who got, like, the crappy side work, or, like, I would get the crappy sections.
Sure.
And it's, like, I'm not, like, at that point, I was 18, because you have to be 18 to serve in order to run alcohol.
Right.
And I was, like, I'm 18. Like, looking back, it's like, yeah, you were a child. But, like, I'm not a child. I'm literally going off to college. I was serving.
And you've been in that environment for 2 years plus. And,
well, like, I served until I was, like, about to go into teaching. I'm like, people trust me with their children. You can give me an okay section at this, restaurant.
Sometimes the best restaurants, though, that in terms of, like, they're always busy, you can make good money, are like that because the turnover's low. And, and people are territorial, and it usually means you're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
And once you earn your way, like, you went to teaching, but if you had, like, another year, you'd kind of, like, broken through.
Yeah.
You'd be in a pretty sweet spot, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've worked places like that, and I would, you know, I had plenty of experience. Like, this is maybe my fourth restaurant job.
Okay.
And I'd still have to start, you know.
Yeah. I guess I feel like, though, like, when you're older, even if you're coming in new, if you're just older, you are more accepted. Like,
I see. It was your age.
Yeah. Like, I've talked with my friend Jen, who is a labor and delivery nurse, on our podcast episode, like, nurses and teachers, like, sometimes there's this mentality of, like, eat your young kind of thing, because there's this territorial, like...
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think... And there's going to be some people that don't like that I'm saying this, but a lot of it has to do with, like, sometimes, I'll say sometimes, it has to do with women who get older, and sometimes, you know, there might not be the new young teacher anymore, or the new young nurse. And so I think that sometimes that can turn over into servers.
Yeah.
Because as unfortunate it is, sometimes, like, women's tip can equate to, like, their looks and their attractiveness. Yeah. And so I think that, at least for women, I don't know, I don't have any experience doing it as, like, a young guy, but I think, like, for women, that can equate to, like, that kind of hazing for new women in serving.
It definitely happens with men, but probably in a different way. It's more like they want the good section with the good customers.
Yeah.
The high ticket sales. Get,
it's not as personal with guys.
It's more just like, get off my turf.
Yeah.
I think.
It's more territorial, less, like, personal.
I did a video about this where it's just me talking. It wasn't, like, put out. But I worked at a restaurant where there was a guy. We were all in, like, our 20s and 30s servers. And there was this one guy in his, like, 60s. And we'll call him Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy.
That was not his actual name, but to protect him. But he was very Southern. He had, like, little wire rim glasses on his nose, kind of balding. He had money in the stock market, so if it was slow, he'd just stare at the TV ticker of, like, CNN to see what the stocks were doing.
Oh, geez.
And he would pick up every double he could. If you didn't want to close, he would take it. So he was just there all the time. But he created a gang, speaking of hazing. He called them the SOFIs. And if you were new, you were an FI, which stands for, you don't curse on this, do you?
I can beep it out. It's fine.
Well, I'll just say effing idiots. Okay. And you were effing idiots immediately. And so he got to know you. And him and his group, and there were, like, these 3 or 4 guys in their 20s. He called them the SOFIs, stamp out the effing idiots. And it was their job, because they would hire, it was a big restaurant, so they'd hire, like, 8 people at a time. And that was a threat to his shifts. So he wanted to get as many of you new ones to quit as possible. So the SOFIs would do things to emotionally attack you, to just sabotage you in ways. And it was wild. And I remember he was rolling silverware next to a girl who just started. I was here, and he was there. And he was like, you know, you're the worst server I've ever seen. And she, like, started crying. Like,
that is okay.
And he wanted you to quit. So if you made it through that, you know,
then you were accepted.
Whatever. But he Yeah, this was
That's
real.
so
And
rude.
these guys would also do all that stuff you saw in the movie Waiting, like lift up your apron. Like, hey, Drew, I'd look over, lift up his apron, and he had his fly undone or something. They would take like things of forks the restaurant had, silverware,
Yeah.
and like this one guy would look at me and just take a big handful of them and just throw them in the trash and walk away. Like, they were so mad they worked there. These were guys who had moved to Nashville to chase country music stardom, and 3 of them had gotten their girlfriends pregnant, and they decided to stay with the girl and marry them. This happened to all 3 of these guys, and they were working doubles to keep the family afloat, and so their dreams were done. They were working in this restaurant all the time, and they were miserable, and they would act out in these crazy ways.
That is so wild.
Yeah. So there's stuff like this I've never even put into episodes because I'm like,
Yeah,
it's almost
kinda heavy.
too much.
Yes.
But
and it's one of those things like we can't make this stuff up.
right.
We
This is what I'm
just
saying.
cannot
Like
make it
again,
up.
it's like you don't know the half of it.
Yes.
I try to keep it like sitcom fun.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's crazy. Well, literally I have so many of these. I'm like, which one do I pick from? Like, so many of these goes into like,
Yeah.
you just. And I did a previous episode with my friend Scott on like hosting.
Yeah.
So like a lot of my personal stories I like told with Scott.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to think if there's one that I haven't, but like someone else sent me a story about how like they weren't even on the clock. They got to the restaurant.
Yeah.
They were 30 minutes early because like they just got out of class early and didn't want to go all the way home. So they get to the restaurant 30 minutes early.
Uh-huh.
And one of the servers was like, I mean, I'm about to leave. Like, I wouldn't mind doing some side work. If a table comes in, do you want it? And they're like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Can I still, like, get something to eat? Because I've been in school all day. And they're like, yeah, not a problem. Just take it and, like, have it and eat at the table right by the kitchen.
Right.
And we can just seat the table. Like, if one comes in, seat it on the other side of the restaurant.
Right.
It'll be fine. So they do that. And a table does come in, and they go and they situate them. And they did have a food runner on. And for those that don't know, a food runner's whole job is to run food from the kitchen to the tables.
Yeah.
And so they had one on. So, they got their appetizer order, got their entree order, sent it in, and went and sit down to eat. Because, like, again, he's been in school all day.
Yeah.
Knew that the food runner would take the appetizer.
Yeah.
Saw them take the appetizer, and saw him take the appetizer, went, checked everything good, cool, went back, sat down to eat. Saw the food runner take the entree, and as he went to go get up and see, like, hey, did everything come out okay? How's everything tasting? Saw them talking to the manager, visibly upset.
Oh.
And so he rushed over and he goes, hey, what's going on? Like, what can I help you guys with? And the customer just looks at him and goes, how dare you? Don't you know that we should be your first priority? Oh. Apparently, they saw the server eating and was so offended that he might need to eat as well.
Right.
And that his whole entire being
Yeah.
wasn't just about them and their food.
Yeah.
That they complained to the manager. Because how unacceptable.
Yeah.
Don't you know that you're not a human being when you're on the clock? You can't eat. You can't pee.
Right.
You can't eat.
Right.
Your whole being should be about your customers' food.
Right. That's right.
Crazy.
How does some people's mind? There was another story similar, not that, but about are we people kind of thing, where this restaurant didn't open, let's say, till 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman comes and walks past the sign that says closed in and at like 10:45, let's say, 15 minutes. And the bartender says, oh, I'm so sorry, we're not open yet, Well, your door was unlocked, and the guy says, well, our fire code says that as long as people are inside, we can't have the door locked or whatever. She goes, there's no people in here. And he goes, well, the staff are people. Like, had to explain it to her. Someone sent that to me. I always worked places where they did have it locked until it was open, but I guess this particular place they had to.
I think it just depends on your fire marshal. Different fire marshals will accept different things.
You had to say, oh, ma'am, we're people.
The staff is here. We are
people.
human beings. Like, there was, I just thought of one that happened to me, but this was more with, like, crappy coworkers. So, like, one of my first restaurant gig, like, this is the place that I was at the longest. One of the older servers, her daughter started working.
Okay.
And this was a woman, she's been there for like maybe decades.
Yeah.
Like she's been there forever.
Yeah.
So she just kind of does whatever she wants.
Sure.
Which is fine,
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
It's not my business. Like, whatever. As long as I do my job, you do yours. Well, her daughter started working, and her daughter was something. Okay. Let me tell you. She made my job so much more difficult. She started when I was, like, lead host and she was host, and she just, like, did not want to work.
Oh, okay.
And then I graduated to server, and she also graduated to server.
Okay. And
I just remember this one time, I worked, like, a bunch of doubles in a row because I was the youngest. I was... Other than her, other than the girl's daughter, the woman's daughter.
Right.
I was the lowest on the totem pole. So, like, if for whatever reason this restaurant never held on-calls liable, so, like, if someone was on call and they just say, oh, I can't come in, sorry, I'm on call, but I can't come in, they'd just say, okay, and they'd go to the next, like, someone else. Right. And it was usually me. Oh, okay. And I also lived down the street. Oh, yeah. So, like, I had a bunch of doubles in a row one week. Yeah. And literally I saw the manager talking to this woman up at the front, and they just kind of kept looking at me. And in my soul, I was like, oh my God, they're going to try and schedule me for tomorrow. And I'm going to just start crying because I'm tired. Yeah. I'm exhausted. Yeah. I'm, like, still in high school doing this. Oh, wow. Like, I'm so tired.
How do you do doubles if you're
Because it was, like, summer, but I was still, like, young. Like, I'm in high school. Like, I'm young.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of meandered over, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, tomorrow we have to call in Sarah on call, which is the daughter. We'll just give her a name. But her mom here says that she's sick and she can't come in. So you're going to have to come in. So we're just going to go ahead and put you on the schedule. And I was like, but I've been working every day doubles this week. I'm so tired. And they're like, you'll be fine. Like, you're young. You'll be fine. You're young. It's fine. Yeah. Like, I mean, she's sick. We can't have her come in sick. Well, like, within 10 minutes, I was so fed up. I went and I looked up Sarah on social media, and I saw her Snap stories was that she was going to a hockey game tonight. And I knew she was just planning on, like, getting drunk, and that was her being sick. Yeah. So I just pulled the manager over, and I just showed it to him, and I was like, I'm not coming in tomorrow. Good for you. I'm
social media
coming
wins
in tomorrow.
Again.
As it should.
So many stories like that.
And literally, her mom did not forgive me. Like, her mom made my life hell.
Right.
For
the mom.
Months.
I forgot about the mom.
I know.
You're playing checkers.
And she's
this is
chess.
This is a chess game.
I regretted that, man. But let me tell you, I went to the pool the next day.
Good for you.
And I had a good time.
I hope you did. I was going to say, I hope you had a really nice time.
I had a really nice day
Those
off.
doubles are killers. Like, I remember there was a job I had, the same place as the other place I told you the story about the guy. But I worked there. I actually loved working there. And there was a chunk of, like, months in a row where my schedule was always Thursday night, Friday double, Saturday double, Sunday brunch. So it was literally 6 shifts in a row. You know, it was like the 2 doubles in the middle and then the night and the day. So it's like, and I did that every week. And it was just like, I remember Thursday would come around and it'd be like, all right, here we go. My Sunday brunch, I mean, that's a bad one to end on, you know, in the South.
Yeah, people don't know, like, the Sunday brunch people might be the rudest customers. And, like, it's so funny because it's always the Sunday brunch after church.
No religion hate, but y'all.
That is some of the rudest customers I've ever experienced.
If anybody doesn't believe, just ask any server you know.
I have a Sunday brunch story. This is a perfect example of a Sunday brunch story. Server had a table of 5. They definitely were Sunday brunch people. They came in, their church clothes, which is, again, there's nothing against people who are religious, but, you know.
No, if you've worked it, you know.
They're giving your religion a bad name, guys. They are.
It's just...
So, Sunday brunch people come in, and she's just taking their drink order. You know, someone gets water with lemon, somebody gets Sprite. This woman says, I would like a Pepsi. And she says, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, we actually only have Coke products. Is a Coke going to be okay? And this woman, she said it was like a
pretty
flip
standard.
switched.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't know. Is my Monopoly money going to be okay with you? Because this is ridiculous. Why do you not have Pepsi? And this woman just went on a whole tirade of all these effing restaurants have Coke. I don't understand why they can't get it together because it's effing disgusting. Like, why? Like, just sitting there yelling at this server.
Yeah.
Because the restaurant
makes total sense.
Has Coke.
Sure.
And not Pepsi.
Yeah.
And
right after church. Like 30 minutes earlier, she was literally singing to Jesus. Yeah. Like literally
and now
praying.
She's berating a restaurant employee.
It's unbelievable. It's so crazy. It's like the most demanding, the most entitled, the worst tipping
they didn't
group
tip at all.
Of impatient people over and over. And also in the South, you get weird stuff like we had this couple that they were regulars, actually really sweet, but it was hilarious. She didn't want her church friends who also came to that restaurant to know she drank alcohol. So she would get her like mimosa in a to-go cup. There was another woman who didn't drink, but she would ask for an Evian in a wine glass with ice.
To make it look like she drank.
And bitters. Now, if you don't know, bitters, you just shake a drop or two into some cocktails, but the alcohol percentage is through the roof. Mm-hmm. It's like, but it's only a drop or two, so whatever.
Right.
She would say, could you just bring me the bottle of bitters? And then she would shake till her wrist had to be, sore. And that Evian glass would be just like, it looked like a rosé,
Oh my God.
And so she got like a free cocktail in a way. Kind of the hack. Please don't use this. This is not me teaching you.
Yeah, this is not. Please don't do that.
They finally had to cut it into it because like it was so insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah, she didn't drink though.
You know what?
I don't drink. Just bring me some bitters.
You know what? Actually, I hated more than Sunday brunch people.
Go on.
I hated. Some people are gonna come for me on this. I hated with a passion. Kids' night.
Oh, kids' night. Oh.
Because the messes that were left, like I'm talking half chewed bread, like just sat there on the table.
My first serving job was O'Charlie's, and if shout out to O'Charlie's, but I don't know if they still do it, but it was always kids eat free. So for every adult entree, 2 free kids. So if a family of 6 came in with 4 kids, 2 adults, this is back in like early 2000s. So entrees are like $8, $9, $10. Mm-hmm. So their bill might be $20 for a party of 6. And the floor is just and the mess. And so you might get $3 to $5 on that. And
you have to sit there for 10, 15 minutes cleaning up. And I want to be so clear. This isn't a we hate children kind of thing. It's
kids.
We hate what parents allow their children to do and the messes they allow their children to make. Like, there's a difference between a regular kid mess. Like, I was a teacher. Yeah. I have little nieces and nephews. You have children. Yeah. There's a difference between regular kid messes and just irresponsible. Yeah, Jimmy, you can literally dunk your piece of bread in the water and then rip it apart and leave it on the seat.
And open up every sugar packet, pour it out.
Yes, every sugar.
It's like anything to... I guess I would say tablets have actually helped a little bit. Because when I was serving... I served for 22 years. You have to understand, I was serving in the old days before iPhones and tablets and stuff.
Bless your heart.
So now you can... Those same parents that don't really want a parent will just give them the tablet, And look, no judgment. Sometimes life is so hard. You just need to have a meal.
I for sure am a fan of the tablet during dinner.
Back before that, it was like give them the sugar packets.
No.
You know what I mean? Anything to keep them, calm them down.
Yes.
So a lot of these messes would come from that or like...
Or like when they would give them the little thing with the crayons and the kids would just sit there and like draw on the walls. And I'm like, why would you let them do that?
The thing in, because I worked in Nashville, but also in LA, I worked in Malibu for a couple of years. Beautiful Malibu. Yeah. But I worked in this restaurant that was right by the Malibu Colony, which is this ultra exclusive neighborhood where a lot of A-list celebrities live and heads of studios and this kind of thing. And so you have a lot of very ultra wealthy clientele, and it was a real casual kind of place. They'd come in disheveled, like it was like their daily spot.
Right.
That gave parenting a whole new twist to me. Like coming from the South, there was a lot more discipline there. Actually, there it was like it was more let the kids literally run wild. So it's like it'd be that dangerous thing you're carrying things, and kids would just run through the restaurant, and that was totally okay. Like if you dared even like correct them, like how could you?
So literally this happened to me. So when I was serving, and like I don't know, we didn't have the giant trays to take food.
Right.
We just had our arms. We would just line plates up on our arms and take as much as we could. Yeah. And we would figure out like how to hold your hands to be able to fit 4 or 5 cups in your hands.
Right.
Like we didn't have the trays at my restaurant. Maybe we did for drinks, but not for food. Right. Sorry, I was thinking a long time ago at this point.
Yeah.
So literally one time I had my arms just covered in plates, bringing them to a table of hot food.
Yeah.
And like there are these kids just sprinting in between, like this 5 to 6-year-old sprinting around, and one ran into me. And I almost dropped the plate on them. I didn't.
Oh, wow.
But I almost, it's those cheerleading reflexes, man.
I was going to say,
just athletic reflexes. I didn't. Like, my thumbs, went into that plate so hard. And I said...
Right into their burger.
Not into the food.
There's just, this hole in the bun. You're like, sorry.
Sorry, there's a
It's better there's a hole in it than you have to wait 30 minutes for another burger, right?
But I said, whoa, hey... We need to go find our parents, and we need to sit down and this is dangerous, okay? I almost dropped this on you. Yeah. Let's go back to our table and let's find our parents. So I dropped the food off, and as I'm going back to the kitchen, this wasn't even my table. The mom approached me. Yeah. And just started screaming at me of, I upset her kids, and I ruined their dinner because they were just trying to have fun, and they never get to see these cousins, and I ruined the whole night because I yelled at her children. And I'm like, ma'am, would you rather your kids be yelled at? Or have a concussion because I dropped a hot plate on them.
Yeah. Or
I don't,
hot soup down their face.
Right. Exactly. I don't know what you want. She said, "Are you threatening my kids?" I said, "What? Are you saying you're gonna drop?" No, I'm saying that's what almost happened. Are you that oblivious to what's going on with your children?
She is.
And I was so scared. She was like, "I'm gonna get you in trouble. I'm gonna get you fired." And of course, my manager was like, "No, you're fine. Yeah. You're okay." But I was
when managers,
18, 19?
When managers get you back, it's pretty sweet.
Oh my gosh,
I had one guy, this family was so rude to me. I lost it.
Yeah? Oh, tell me.
They were so rude about everything. But at one point they suggested that the food I'd serve them, which I actually really liked the food at this restaurant. I liked the chefs. And I was real proud of it. It was good stuff. It was objectively good. It had been around for a long time, and the particular dish I served was really great. And they said they wouldn't serve it to their dog, I think was the way they said it. And it just I think I'd probably been working too much. I was tired, and it was just too much.
Yeah.
And it was, again, at the end of a lot of rude things they had said.
Right.
It was just out of pocket.
Right.
And I came out there with their next dish, and I was like, here. I said something like, here, enjoy, or just give it to your dog. I don't care.
Yes.
And they went, what? And they were out of their minds.
How dare you?
It was 3 generations of people at the table, and they were just went off. Wow. One of them went to the manager, and then the manager came to me, and I said, this is what happened. This is what they said. This is what they said. This is what they said. And then I said that. And I'm sorry, but I just couldn't take anymore. I'm proud of our food. I kind of sold it on, I'm standing up for the restaurant.
Yeah.
And he got my back, and he went out there and took my side.
Yeah.
They were out of their minds, and they left. But he got my back on that, which I thought this could be the moment
This could be the moment I leave. I might not be back here.
I know you can't do that, what I just did, but shout out to Mike. Got my back.
Oh, I love that.
He was like a server who had just kind of become manager. Matter of fact, at one point he was being called by the owner the pseudo manager by default.
Oh, Oh.
It was so funny to us. It was like, did he want it? He kind of wanted it, but they didn't really want to hire him for that. They kind of wanted him to just be a server. So he was like serving and doing the schedule and managing, and like they called him that in a meeting once. It was so funny to us.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like a dynamic that like people really get is like customer server manager, but like something that a lot of people just don't know exists is the dynamic between line cooks and servers.
Oh yeah.
And that is so fascinating.
Well, you probably have a very different perspective than I, being a woman.
Yes. Oh yeah. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I already know.
Oh, no,
I've
like,
made a video about this.
To tell the people.
Yeah, it's one of my biggest first hits.
So like the dynamics between line cooks and servers are so interesting because it's either all or nothing, in my opinion, from my experience. They either love you or they will like hate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they love you, and it's a lot easier for women, like for the women servers, especially the itty bitty teeny boppers.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't matter. The line cooks can be in their 40s or 50s. It does not matter.
Does not matter.
I
know it sounds
New
really
18-year-old
sick
server.
To some people watching,
it is sick. 100% it's sick. And I worked at a restaurant that had like the V-necks.
Yeah.
On purpose. Yeah. And most people wore shorts. And we were not allowed to wear jackets.
All right.
So like, and it's funny because it was technically supposed to be a family friendly restaurant. Like it was like a sports bar, but like they would have kids night. Yeah. And I was so shocked. I was like, these are some V-necks, man. Like, okay, like I would have to wear like a tank top under for most of them. Yeah. Or for a while so until they changed them. The line cooks really enjoyed being there. I'm sure. And it was gross. It was just gross. But of course, like you milk it and you get free food. I
got pretty good as a dude, working in these environments. I caught on after a while, Every restaurant I worked at, the line cooks absolutely despised me early on.
Yeah, because you're a dude.
Because I'm a dude, and all I represent to them is a server who's going to mess up stuff and make their job harder.
Yes.
And I'm making tips, and they're working harder and hotter environment, and it's not fair, and a lot of that's super legit. But I always earned my way through being competent.
Yes.
If I stuck around long enough, I would be competent, and then I didn't do it early on, but once I'd kind of showed them that I was good, I wasn't going to make their life harder. I would do things like communicate to them to make their life easier. Hey guys, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to ring in a 10 top. Just going to give you a heads up. They appreciated that stuff. Yeah. And then you move in with the waters or the Monster Energy drinks or whatever they like. You ask them if it's hot. You ask them, hey, can I get you guys a refill? You move in with that stuff.
Yeah.
And then maybe, bring in some candy and stuff like that. You can do these things and you can't do all that and be a jackass when it comes to like messing up orders. But if you can be competent and do little things like that, it goes a long way. And then they will do stuff for you. Because then when you do mess up and it's Friday night and you've screwed yourself by forgetting to ring that order in, you can go to them and say, I'm such an asshole. I'm so sorry. Is there any way on the fly? They got you. It will be magic how fast they can do stuff. And if they hate you, it's unbelievable how long it can take. So if you do that, you make your life better.
It's so fascinating. And it's like there's such a double standard. No. Because I never had to do any of that. Yeah. Like I can't tell you how many times. Brandon, I totally forgot to ring in this order.
You just did.
Can you please help me?
Guys have to work a little harder at that. Yeah. But I'd rather do that than just complain about how it's not fair because I'm a dude.
100%. It is the way that it is. Or like, hey Rebecca, like I'm making myself some lunch. Like, you hungry? You want something? Oh, I would love something. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That's so
But then also, eventually, if you work long enough, you actually become friends with these.
Oh,
It becomes like the moment you hang out outside of work, could be the company holiday party or like you get drinks after. Yeah. Or something like that. It switches to another level. So that stuff I'm talking about is kind of early on. But like if you work there long enough and you're real with them, it becomes actually some of the best places I worked was when everybody actually literally respected each other and worked hard for each other.
I wish. That sounds magical.
Oh, it's only been a couple places, but it's awesome when it happens.
Oh, actually, you know, when I did bartending, because I went to a brewery and did bartending.
Yeah.
So like that place, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And it was so fun. And I wasn't there very long. I was only there until I officially started teaching.
Yeah.
It was like literally like the summer before I started teaching.
Okay.
But
so you didn't get long at it, but yeah.
No, I didn't. Well, one of my best friends from high school was like very high up on the totem pole there.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I've actually ever told this story. The reason that I left, my original restaurant, because I was with that chain for years, like maybe 5-6 years, was so first of all, I did babysitting for one of the owners.
Okay.
And so I would go between locations. Like they were a local chain, so they had like 5 of them. So I would go to whichever building she just needed help with at the time. In my last spot, I was there for maybe a year and a half. And I kind of got into it with one of the like OG servers. Because there was a host who started, and this server just kept trying to pawn all her side work off on them. And for those that don't know, like every server, like how we did it is if you're first cut, second cut, third cut, you have like designated side work. So like first cut will always fold the pizza boxes and refill, clean the drink machines. Yes, it was always locked in based on what cut you were. Second cut would like cut all the lemons and refill the lemons. Like it was a whole list.
Yeah.
So that once you were cut, you had to get all your side work done and get it checked before you were allowed to leave. So she would pawn all her side work off on this host. The host is not supposed to do your side work for you.
Right.
That's not their job. They're not paid for that. You have to get that done. Yeah. Especially when you're also a manager at this restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Right. A server and a manager. Right. You can do your side work. Yeah. So literally they had a group chat of all the servers, and this server was just crapping on this host because I told the host don't do her side work. You do not need to do that. So she started crapping on this host for not doing her side work.
Okay.
I want to get them fired. They won't do the stuff I'm telling them to do. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just watching like, you're going to say something and it's going to piss me off. And I'm not going to be able to hold my tongue. And then she said, and can you believe he wore a jacket to his shift the other day? Like, he wore a jacket over his shirt. Now, mind you, it wasn't zipped all the way. I was there. Yeah. I was there to see it. And I responded and I said, did you know that host came in with 100-degree fever because he tried to call out and we had no one else? Oh. And instead of making you fill in and figure that out as manager, he just came in miserable. So sorry it offended you that this person with 100-degree fever was having chills and put on a jacket so that you didn't have to do more work. But I think you can live with it. I don't think that's a reason for you to try and get them fired. And that kind of screenshot it, and I sent it to the owner that I babysat for. Yeah. And I was kicked out of the group message within a day. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. It's time. I'm about to graduate college. Yeah. And I was telling my best friend, one of my friends that works at the brewery, and he was like, do you want to just like work here for the summer? Yeah. And I was like, okay, sure. Why not? Let me try bartending out. So that's how I left. I was like, I'm graduating. I'm just going to put in my 2 weeks. And I started at the brewery until I started teaching. And that's how I left the service industry.
Yeah, there you go. You brought up another issue with like,
tell me.
Working sick.
Yeah.
Is like a real problem in restaurants because we survive on tips and there's a mentality like you just don't call out. If you do, everybody's kind of like, pfft.
Yes.
And so everybody works sick and we're handling food.
Yes.
So it's really insane. If any good came of COVID, and I don't know, someone who's still working will have to tell me. I feel like it'd be like now, if you were a little sick and you had to work, you could put a mask on.
Yes.
And people are not going to be as weirded out. Like if you did this in 2018,
right?
If you came to work with a medical mask on, customers would be like
what's going on?
Why is this person serving? Now, if you did it, people would probably just be like, whatever. I know there's some places
you'll get like a rude jerk about it.
Maybe, but most people are just gonna be like, whatever. They're a masker or something.
Yeah. It's not gonna.
Or
be the
they
end
appreciate
of the
it.
world.
They're like,
right.
oh, they must be under the weather and they're protecting me. Cool.
Right. Thank you.
So that's good. But like, I worked sick for decades. I would come to work sick, and I just think about like your story. This guy had 100-degree fever. People probably listening to the podcast were like, wait, he came to a restaurant like that? Yeah.
100%.
All the time.
All the time. It happens all the time. That's why
you try to wash your hands as much, but come on, it gets busy. So it's like, it's so unethical. It's so bizarre.
Yes.
And it's so, in California now, my friend just texted me, actually, shout out to Maddie. There's sick time now that's legally required. He's accumulated like 60 hours of it. Now, obviously, he's not going to get tips and whatever, but he gets paid hourly at some point for that sick time. He's accumulated it.
Wow.
But he said it's still kind of frowned upon to use it.
Oh, I'm sure. Of course it is. Yeah. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
But it should be. We need to normalize
using
if you're sick.
Stay home, especially if you work with food.
Doing whatever we have to do to make it work, to make that a thing that doesn't, because you feel like if you don't show up, the restaurant won't function. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these smaller restaurants, it is really hard to cover it. And it's difficult, but we need to figure out a way.
Oh, 100%.
It's not right.
Do you think there are any other misconceptions or something that like the general public just doesn't know or doesn't understand when it comes to serving? The service industry?
I think a lot of it we've covered, but I don't know if a lot of people understand, and they might, but like it's rampant with like substance abuse.
Oh, yeah.
And I struggle with that myself. I've been clean for almost 10 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Clean. So the best thing that ever happened to me was getting clean and sober, but like, and I'm not saying it was because of the restaurant business, but
it definitely antagonizes
it is like
a little.
You have a lot of the type of personalities that are attracted to it.
Yeah.
And the rigorous hours and the stress of it all.
And the late nights.
And the late nights, and you get off work and you go, whatever, and it just kind of can bleed over into a lot of people's lives, and they lose track of boundaries. And so it's a thing. I don't know if a lot of people, they might, but.
I have one, and I touched on this a little bit in our host episode, but it's important, so I'm going to repeat it. Something that people just tend to not understand is that a server has to tip out both the bar and the food runners and the host.
And what they don't know is usually that tip out is calculated off of sales, not your tips.
Not tips. So the bartender will take the percentage alcohol that a server sold during their shift and take a percent out of that and say, you owe me this amount of money.
Yep.
And same thing with food runners and hosts.
Right.
It's calculated based off of the amount of food that was sold. And a percentage of that number comes out and a server has to pay it.
Yeah.
And I know that there's like a whole like debate about like, obviously we would prefer if companies and restaurants just paid their servers. Yeah. We would rather that. But when it comes to tips, if people like stiff enough servers, a server is going to pay out of pocket to the bartender. Yeah. So like the idea is that what should happen is a percentage of the tips that they make goes to the bartender and goes to the food runner and goes to the host. Yeah. But if their tips are less than that tip out, they have to pay their own money to these people. So there are some servers who lose money just by serving because people don't tip them.
Usually, you make enough to cover it, and it all works out. And I think it's the restaurants looking at it like we can't trust the servers to be honest about their tips because some are cash tips and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So they do base it off sales. But it means if you have like a night where you had a large party of like 20 people, that was most of your night, and you had a couple other two tops, and they tip you a very small amount, you might end up paying to serve them.
Exactly. Like someone sent me a story about how she had a two-top for lunch. And she said, oh, can I offer anyone some wine or anything like that? He said, oh, of course. We would love a glass of your nicest champagne or Chardonnay. I don't remember what kind they asked for. But so she brought it out. And later when it came to presenting them with the bill, one of the girls just started getting visibly upset. So, waitress will start snapping her back over, which is so rude. Yeah. Never do that. She goes, I don't understand why this is here. And she points to the wine on the itemized list. Okay. She goes, well, you ordered wine, so therefore it's on your receipt. Yeah. And she's like, she's trying not to sound snarky, but she's like, I don't know what you don't understand. She goes, but you offered it to me. And she's, what? She was, you offered me wine, and I took it. You didn't ask if I wanted to order wine. You said, can I offer you wine?
I hear stories like this, and my thought is always the same. Like, is this your first time being in a restaurant?
It's though some people will literally like do anything they can to nickel and dime, and it's gross. And she said, ma'am, I'm sorry. That's not how it works here at a restaurant. And her instant response was, okay, well, that's fine, but me paying that $6 for that glass, that's your tip. Yeah. That's your tip. There you go.
Please, by all means. I would love for someone to say it. Be like, great, so we're done here?
Great, cool. See you later. Yeah. Pay your tab.
Whatever will I do?
Let me clean the table and get it ready for the next one. But do you have any last minute either stories or anything that you want to educate people about service industry or serving or anything at all?
No, just look, we're all people.
Yes.
Life is hard. It's hard for the guests. It's hard for the servers. Let's all treat each other like people.
Right, exactly.
Let's talk to each other like people. Let's treat each other with respect. I'm talking to servers too.
Exactly.
You're having a bad day, don't take it out on your tables. And tables, we're all people.
Right.
If we could all just be people
with
each other.
Exactly.
Or, that'd be
it's the idea that you have a job. This is your job.
Yeah.
Do it with us. Do your job. Be at your job. But also, if you're a guest, these are still people, right? It's
all just make this experience awesome.
My biggest thing is reminder for everybody that when you see these funny stories, funny haha on social media, and you're like, haha, that's such a funny teacher story or server story. Read between the lines and just make sure you're not acting that way. And make sure your parents aren't acting that way, and your friends aren't acting that way. It's there to entertain you, but read between the lines, my guys.
It's educational.
This is happening everywhere. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, this was so fun, and thank you all for hanging out with us. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hope to see y'all next week. Bye, my lovelies.
Bye.